Hey guys, welcome to episode 2 of Outfitting Unity. We're so excited to have our podcast rolling. We're even doing a second episode. The first one was so successful that we decided to make another one.
Yep.
So welcome back. We're so glad to have you. Today we have not just a guest, but a future co-host and internal celebrity. This is Mary Inoke, our director of people. I can hear the crowd like, so it's a Mary, right? So good to have you here. We're going to have a fun conversation today because what's coming up is National Employee Appreciation Day. And I think that sounds awesome. It's an unofficial day that was started in 1995, but it has become a big deal. And I think employee appreciation has become a big deal. So we did our homework. We have stuff to talk about today. We're going to talk about things that everyone talks about. We're going to talk about controversial things. And we're going to leave on some feel good. I think Winnie the Pooh may make an appearance today.
That.
So anyway, let's dive into it. I think this will be great for us to talk about. And we're curious. And I think that this episode is like a curiosity. What are people actually thinking of? So if I say what's the first thing that comes to mind to you? And what I love about your style of HR, as we've talked about, is it's about that one-on-one relationship.
Yeah.
And so if you'll speak to that before we dive into this, I love your style of HR. So Mary.
Yeah, I'm definitely a little more unconventional on this side. I am thinking on an individual level, not always on a corporate, full company level. I really like to get to know people on a one-on-one level. I want to know what makes them tick. I want to know what they care about outside of work. I want to know what they care about inside of work. And I feel like in order to have those types of relationships, it allows me to unlock opportunities for them and do things for them that's more special.
And I can speak to that. And what's fun about having Mary on our show is that she gets to work with the 160 people that are in our building. And life is life.
Yes.
Right? Stuff happens, illness, promotions, frustrations, things that get in the way, right? The kid needs me to go home.
Yeah.
There's just life, right? And all the variety there is a life. So HR is such an interesting space because you get to be with people's situations.
Yeah.
Right? So let's dive into this. I'm excited about the March 7th, National Employee Appreciation Day. So I'd actually love to hit the first one because I thought it was good.
Sure.
And one of the things that we talked about is the continuous appreciation that we do here. So kind of like Christmas, it's a day of giving, but we want Christmas in our hearts every day, right? And so how do we have appreciation in our hearts every day at work? And we do it here. We were just doing it downstairs. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, it's actually something we were talking about right before we started this podcast. We were talking about national holidays. We have Valentine's Day coming up. People want to go big for Valentine's Day. It's their one day that they're like, oh my gosh, I love my significant other, or I love my kids, and I really want to show that. But I feel like if you're only waiting for one reserved special day for that, you're missing so many opportunities throughout every day and of life to be able to do that. And I feel the same way about employee recognition. I don't need a big special day. Yes, it's a great day to appreciate them, but every day I want to show them that I care about them, that I appreciate what they're doing, their efforts are important to me, and that I value them.
So what's the thing that you do continuously that you drive here? Because I love receiving it, right, as an employee. So what is it that you drive for the team? How do you plan this?
I think the biggest thing is the one-on-one conversations. I am out on the floor. I'm talking to employees. I'm having conversations about what's going on in their lives. So that way, when things get hard, they can come and share those things with me. And then when they have wins and successes, they also want to share those things with me. And I feel like our managers here do a really great job of doing the same thing.
Yeah, it's like somebody said the best compliment to someone is asking for their help.
Yes.
Right. And so I think that we want to be asked for help. But if I'm asking for your help, that's as much of a compliment as it is saying you're great at your job.
Yep. It means you trust me. That's what that signal is to the employee, is you trust that they're going to not only say yes, but that they can be vulnerable in asking for help and not being judged or any other, negative situations.
When did you feel the most trusted in that way, where someone came asking for your help?
So I have negotiated 7-figure contracts for big, huge Fortune 100 companies, and I'd never done that before. And so having the opportunity for somebody just to be like, I trust you to take ownership of this and run with it. By the way, you're going to be meeting with their executive council. And I'm like, what? And on the other side of that, when I came out and it was successful, that was very meaningful to me.
Awesome. Well, we also want to be meaningful to you today. So I have a surprise for you.
Okay. I love surprises.
Come on over, surprise.
What's up, guys?
Chris.
It's your pumpkin spice from the human being.
Oh my gosh. How did you know?
Good surprise.
That was awesome.
Sometimes you just have to know things about people.
Wow. This is funny because I always have coffee in my hand. Like every event, I've got a cup in my hand, and this is my favorite. Thank you.
So guys, this is our CEO, Chris Jensen. And he's going to join us actually. And you didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
So let's grab him a chair.
Awesome.
So one thing you can expect on our show is surprises. And you had no idea.
I had no idea. You guys got me.
You know how hard it was for us to discover what your favorite coffee was?
Yeah, I want to know how you guys managed to do that.
So anyway, we would love for you to go to the next topic. Chris, welcome. It's good to have you on the show.
Good to be here, Matt.
What's fun about our show is this was inspired by our CEO. And so Outfitting Unity, our mission statement to connect and unite people one brand at a time came from our CEO. So it's an honor to have you on here. So we're talking about National Employee Appreciation Day today. And we're starting with some topics. We've been talking about what we do here. What's your favorite thing about what we do here that is a continuous, it happens like systematically about demonstrating appreciation?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the thing that I've enjoyed the most about what we do here is our monthly meetings that we do with everybody. In fact, we just did one today. And so it gives us an opportunity to recognize different individuals that are doing amazing things, let everybody see what they're doing and hear what they're doing. And so it's a really great opportunity to connect and unite people, right there face to face.
That's awesome. So in the planning for it, like when did you feel like, okay, this is the right cadence? When can it be too much? When is it not enough? Like, I know that we've worked with our team to do that, but for you, like, how do you feel like, okay, like this is the right amount of time between?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, if you do it maybe too often, you end up watering it down a little bit, and so getting on that monthly cadence for us was important. And it's not, we don't do an employee of the month or anything like that. I mean, that's been done. People do it. We've got some core values that we really resonate with and we love. And so we've got somebody that takes away that award every single month. And just a lot of other what we call all-stars that are just great individuals that do awesome work every month. And so doing that on a monthly basis, I think gives people a time to work and to be awesome, but then be recognized and rewarded.
That's awesome. Well, thank you. So I want to switch topics now. I want to actually talk about the controversial side of appreciation. Like, when is appreciation not appreciation? Yeah. So I'll turn it to both of you guys and I'll kind of drive some questions. One of the things I thought about, like, when can appreciation turn into propaganda? When does a company like really got it wrong, where it's like, okay, this is for us, this isn't actually saying, gosh, we appreciate you, right? When is it propaganda?
When it's insincere. If you're doing it for a photo shoot or you're doing it to get video, it's insincere. When it's sincere and it's actually in the moment or on the spot, like it feels more genuine and sincere. Like you should mean it.
Yeah. I can think of a time that I was, we were busy and there was something going on, and I walked through a group and I was saying, like, you guys are killing it. And like, that came from a place of me just wanting to say it. Not that I knew what was going on. And I wondered, like, are they?
Yeah. Maybe that employee was an hour and a half late this morning and put their manager in a bad position. You come through there and you say that, and the manager's like, what are you doing?
I am trying to discipline somebody.
I just wrote him up 5 minutes ago.
Yeah. It's like I come home and surprise the kids with something and the kids just gave mom a bad time, right? Like, yeah, that's happened once or twice. Okay, so Chris, what do you think on that? Like, when does it become, like, when is it not good?
Yeah, I think the same with what Mary's talking about. I mean, the reality is when it's not heartfelt, and if it becomes about the company and the company doing something, I think you miss the mark at that point. And that's what, years ago, as we identified just for us some of these core values, sure, those were things that were about the company, but at the end of the day, we had people that were living those things and we wanted to be able to recognize them. So in that aspect, it became about who they were, what they did, how they lived. And what we find, and it's fun, but they don't just live that here at work. Like, that's who they are. And so one of our core values is embody an attitude of ownership. These individuals don't just do that while they're at work. Like, when you look at their personal lives, I'm like, my gosh, like you're taking care of life. You're taking care of people. Like, this is awesome. And so I think as long as companies are focused on the individual, what they're accomplishing, what they're doing, it's about them. And when it's about them, it's fun.
It feels very selfless. And so when it's selfish, it's propaganda. When it's selfless, it can be felt. Yeah. So sometimes I think unintentionally we celebrate employees, but we're not We're not trying to, if that makes sense. And so our high performing employees appreciate it, while steady, reliable workers who have that level of ownership are overlooked. So let's talk about that. Like, how often does that happen?
Pretty frequently. I coach our managers often, like, hey, when you're thinking about our All-Star Award, when you're thinking about nominating that, I want you to think about that person that is reliable, the person that always comes in on time, comes in, does a good job for you, but doesn't really talk to other people. Maybe they are a little more introverted, so they don't have a lot of deep relationships, and they're not cross-functional with different departments all the time, but they're just reliable and they do a great job. That's the person that we need to recognize. The person that's always overperforming and doing all these amazing things, they get tons of credit all the time. It's the person that comes in and just does a dang good job for you, but maybe is often overlooked.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's funny. I love what you said there, Mary. The reality is there's so many people that come in every day and great team members that just get it done. And those are some of the funnest individuals when you can get them on a side conversation, because they're not always looking for, they're not looking for anything as far as praise and reward or that kind of thing. That's who they are, and I go back to core values. Those are the people that they embody that attitude of ownership, or they're cool under fire. I mean, they want to get it done. And so they're in a good way, they're not on anybody's list. Maybe they're not on the overperforming list, but they're not on the underperforming list, right? Yeah. If lists existed, they just come in and they kick butt every single day. And so I love that approach, to be able to go in there and have that be the identifier. Who are those individuals, right?
On that front, I think you do an excellent job at that. Just a couple of luncheons ago, you did something like that, where you stood up and there were people, we did the All-Stars and we had the great big party for them, but then you individually pointed out people and their contributions in that meeting. And you could see them light up. Those people were like, wow, he notices me. It was incredible. I was like, and I that touched my heart, because I was like, yeah, it's exactly what we talk about here.
Isn't it funny? And we've talked about this so many times, but the reality is, how do you recognize in a monthly meeting, 200 individuals in 12 months? But also have it be meaningful, right?
To them.
We live in a world that, good or bad, I don't know where I sit on the line of this, but participation trophies are a reality. My daughter's playing on a 7th grade basketball team right now. They're good, they're okay, but what I know at the end is they're all going to get a medal from the city telling them how great they are, right?
I did good.
Yes, and I love them, and it's awesome, and it's fun to watch, right? But at the end of the day, do some of them stand out more than others? Sure. Or some of them, if there were a trophy to give it, could it be done? And so I think that's one of the challenges we have, and recognition is, how do we recognize everybody for the work that they do, right?
So let's go darker. So I wonder, as I think about the competitive nature of awards, I got Employee of the Month again. Yeah. It's on the wall. When should we be aware of when it becomes competitive? When it isn't just a culture of appreciation that isn't that great for you? Yeah. Or is this genuine excitement for others? When it starts to become me versus you, and that can be the opposite of what we're trying to achieve. When does appreciation become competitive?
I have a great example of this at a former company. So we did peer nominated employer awards. We did them quarterly, and the employees all voted for whoever they thought should earned it, right? And it got to the point where they were campaigning. Employees were campaigning to win this award. They would, the 2 days before they knew votes were going to be happening, they would bring donuts and deliver them to everybody and be like, hey, I'm so-and-so and I work.
I only did it once. I didn't mean to.
Yeah. And it was you want to talk about people getting really offended?
Sure.
The person won, but then they were offended. I'm like, you can't be mad when you voted for him just because he gave you a donut. But that is the extreme, right? That's when it becomes competitive and not actually effective.
That's funny. What are your thoughts, Chris?
Well, I'd like to say that hasn't happened here, but
I didn't do it intentionally.
I think over time, we've all kind of run into that same situation, right? But and we have similar. I mean, we do have some of our awards are peer nominated, but I think part of it is what culture are you driving? How are you building the team? And we're finding that while that may existed at one point, doesn't really exist as much anymore, because I think people are looking out for others and saying hey, who really is just doing a great job? and those are where those votes or those, we use a different method of who gets, shout outs and different things on a platform that we use. But that's I think that goes to show that the team really cares about, what's happening and who's doing the things they're doing. So
that's awesome. Let's talk about remote workers. So we think remote's changing, right? That there will always be remote, but it's probably less than it used to be. When you see someone every day, there's high fives and, and that's a good thing. But what do we do with like remote workers where they're just not here and you see them on digital meetings, but there isn't that like, person to person energy. There isn't the day to day. How was your day? They usually show up for the meeting and then they leave. And sometimes there's a chat online, but do they receive equal levels of appreciation? How do we ensure that happens? We had an awesome lunch today. How many of our remote employees got to participate in the energy of all of us being together?
Yeah, I think that's something that we all could work on in HR. Like it's definitely been a challenge. Pulling out the phone and getting on FaceTime with your remote workers in a moment like that is a challenge. I think we do a pretty good job here because we have integrated them. We brought our remote workers in for our Christmas party this year. So that way they had an opportunity to come in and interface awesome. And do things like that. So I do think there's a lot of room for improvement there, but I think we're getting better at remembering to include them and thinking about them. It just takes an extra level of consideration.
Remote workers are definitely key to a lot of success, depending on the position. And so we've got some positions here that works really well with, and we've ran the gamut of doing really great with remote workers and really bad with remote workers. Years ago, we had some branches that and this was before technology existed the way that it does, that was hard to keep them involved in the day-to-day. Now, the great thing is, we can pull up a screen, we can be doing FaceTime, Zooms, video chats. These things are happening all the time, so it's pretty easy. But, and even in our events that we do now, I know a lot of times we're sending out, if we're having lunch here, we're sending gift cards, DoorDash gift cards to the remote workers and team members so that they can also enjoy something, but I think this goes back to how do you, and I don't know that I have the answer to this question, Matt, how do you create that same energy remote? I don't know that I have the answer to that yet. The reality is like when you got 150, 60 people here and we're all hanging out and high-fiving and hooping and hollering, whistling and whatnot, like how do you make that happen over Zoom? I'm not really sure yet how that happens.
So I think it is tricky. And let's probably get into, so it's a good segue. So there's two ways I think that we can do this. And there's two more questions on this topic of controversy. Knowing that I did the job is such a good feeling, right? Knowing that I accomplished it. There's such a sense of strength and capacity and confidence that comes from accomplishing the goal. So is it bad to have KPIs? And does that help a remote employee as well as it does here? Is it good to have KPIs? Should appreciation just be like whenever it shows up? Or is it extra when we did it?
Yeah.
Right? I think of our 8-year-old is pumped. He's very good at making his bed right now. And he comes running down the hallway and he's like, I did it, and he's so excited. And he brings me in his room to show him. And I'm like, look at you, bud. And he's just standing there glowing, for him, it was a major accomplishment. And then for us, we're like, ooh, thank you, bud, but he feels accomplished and he's proud of himself, And so let's talk about that. Are KPIs good or bad? And what's your opinion?
I think the right KPIs can be great. I think if you're trying to measure things like how many shout outs did you have, or then they can go sideways on you. But I think my KPIs, I think, are great. I have an employee net promoter score. I want to know how I'm doing, and I can see whether something landed right. Like maybe we started a new initiative or we made an announcement, we're going to do this new thing. And you can see that immediately in the impact of those scores. Christmas holiday season, there's a lot of employee recognition things that happen during that. So we see peak levels and then you see them taper off as the winter goes on. It's colder, people are dealing with home factors and seasonal depression and flus and all these other things that are going on, and you see them come down. And so my goal is to be ahead of that and proactive about that and hopefully be doing things in order to keep those scores higher. And a lot of that, it comes down to appreciating and recognizing our people, even in the cold slog of winter, right? You have to make it a focus. Yeah. But yeah, I think absolutely they can be. I think they can go sideways though. If everything were dependent on that, then I'd be so focused on the detractors, it would just distract me.
Yeah.
And I could get overwhelmed with that, maybe take it personal, all the other negative things that can come from that. So I think it just depends on how you use them and measuring the right things.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I think to add to those things, having the individuals help build those KPIs makes a difference too, right? I mean, there's something to be said about ownership. If you're brought into a situation and you're thrown this, KPI and say, this is your thing, you got to do it all. You might do it out of duty. You might do it out of like, oh, it's my job, which, that's fine. It's a job. But if you can be involved in that process of like creating and building that piece, how much more involved are you in that, right? And when it comes to hitting these, I think maybe I'm taking a wide berth, but I think most, if not all team members at companies want some sort of measuring stick. I mean, how else do you know? We all went through school and grade school and college and all these things. And what was the measuring stick? Did I get an A? Did I get a B? Did I get a C? And did I pass? And I think that's what, in a way, like kind of motivated us to go to the next. Cool, I got that. Like, what's next? What's next? And I think with key performance indicators, we're talking about the same thing. But again, having them have some input in how that plays out, we found over the years. I mean, that changes the whole game versus just having somebody come in, boom, that's yours. You got to get the input.
So when you get a compliment after accomplishing your goal, it feels super different than saying you're doing a great job while missing your goal, right? Like,
that's weird.
It's tough, right? Because you're like, I'm not doing a great job, right? And being self-aware, you would know that. Well, you appreciate that, like the effort is there.
Right.
We know you're trying, but like you missed it.
And you can say that, like, I appreciate your effort.
Which is real.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's making it more sincere.
That's a whole podcast on itself. I gotta be honest with you, talking about like goals and
we'll do that. That's episode 13. We got a few to go.
I'm a super believer in like, not that you gotta, we talk about SMART goals. I mean, sometimes but you gotta stretch a little bit.
Right.
And so it's like you can throw a goal out there that's like, I'm going to achieve that every time and we can high five all day long. But did we grow and did we do something? And so I think there's something to be said about as we're setting those. And that's where I'm saying, like, bring people in on these, because as we're setting these key performance indicators, like, it's not about like, well, we got to grow 15%. Yeah, that's definitely a piece of it. But what if you were talking to the individual and they're like, actually, I think I do 25. Awesome. Let's do 25.
Right.
And guess what? If you get to like 18.5%, we're freaking super excited about that.
Yeah.
Because we thought 15.
Yep.
And so I think, again, having them have that piece, that ownership, being a part of that, man, changes the game.
Yeah, they get their own ambition.
Yeah, it makes it fun.
That's awesome. We will do a podcast.
Yeah, that's like a whole nother thing.
The most controversial topic of this. You ready?
Ready.
You guys ready? Okay. Should we pay more instead of appreciating more? And let me go a question deeper. Would employees rather receive bonuses or raises than verbal or symbolic appreciation? I'm going to go third question deep. Is recognition without financial reward a way for companies to avoid paying employees what they're truly worth? This is a tough one.
Buzzing, right?
Yeah.
That feels like a zinger a little bit, right?
Yeah.
I have had this question twice in the last day.
Wow.
Twice. And I think that, in my opinion, the answer is they think that they want monetary, they want cash, they want more pay. But at the end of the day, if we stop doing everything else, they'd feel empty and hollow with that extra $50 per paycheck. And it's almost like we need to do a trial and experiment. I'll give you 50 cents and no recognition for the next 6 months. And I'm going to give you recognition and no 50 cents. And let's see what the difference is. Yes, because I feel like they think they want it. And I don't get me wrong. I know that they have bills to pay and we've got inflation, all these other things that are factoring into that. And they have stresses and lives outside of here that we don't know about. But at the end of the day, if I gave them $1 raise or a 50-cent raise or even a $2 raise, and took away all the recognition things, would they really feel fulfilled? Absolutely not. They're just going to want more money and still feel unfulfilled. That's my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, such a balance. That's a straight question across the bow, right? Like that's a reality, though.
I saved the best for last.
Let's get after it. There's one of the things I love about our team, and Mary leads our team so well, the people team, is we definitely want to fall within a range, right? I mean, it's, if you got great team members that are doing a great job, let's make sure that we're compensating them to the right amount in there. I do think that to your point, there's something to be said about being told you're doing a good job. It's hard when you come in day to day and yeah, you might hit your goal, but what if nobody else saw you hit your goal? You're the only one that knows that.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that's where that additional recognition comes in, because how cool is it when somebody else comes up to you and says, like, holy cow, I saw what you did today. Like, that was freaking cool. Like, that's where like you kind of get excited and you want to do it again tomorrow. But you could be hitting your goal every single day. And if nobody ever said anything to you about it, or you didn't get any recognition for it, I can tell you from personal experience and seeing people, that will last for, I don't know, 6 months, 12 months, maybe a couple of years. But at some point, people are going to step back and be like, I'm not having fun anymore. Right. Like that, there's something to be said about that, is like, how do you, that's part of the fun, is looking at each other, talking about it. We do some things in our meetings that we have a management meeting every Monday morning. And it's kind of fun because every other week, and we've got a kind of a cycle rotation of things we do, but every other week we talk about like the wins and departments. And that is such a fun thing to do, because it gives us an opportunity to go out and when we hear a win, go talk to the people and be like, dude, I heard today you did this.
Right.
That right there is gold. And I think is the question, do you pay more and do less of that? I don't think that can ever be the question. That can't be the solution. I think the solution is try and be fair in where you're at, but recognize like crazy. It's got to happen.
So I have an answer for this question.
Why didn't you start?
Yeah, why didn't you start?
Wait, can I ask you the question then? Yeah. Let me ask you the question.
So let's flip it to a positive perspective. And so this is exciting. Recognizing and appreciating people. It's exciting.
Yeah.
It feels good to give. So Dale Carnegie is quoted saying this: people work for money, but go the extra mile for recognition, praise, and rewards. Yeah. And he references like Olympians and, trophies, first place, are the most elite athletes in the world. The money will go away. That's part of the reward, but they will hold that trophy forever. Mm-hmm. The Super Bowl, the manliest sport in the world, you get a ring for winning that thing, right? And they keep it. It's in a box, like it's yeah, exactly. Like it's so important to them. And I think of anything that we've won at, like we keep it on our shelf. We keep it out for people to see. Like I won a silly game. I absolutely am keeping that, right? We just had our dance off for our after party at our last trade show, and the guy has a WWE style belt. That's going up somewhere, right? And he earned it for sure. So let's talk about the positivity of recognition and how it's affected you as the appreciator. And I've got some quotes here. So I'll lead with this one, and hopefully that opens up to you guys for just how it affects you. How do you feel when you appreciate people? And this is by Melody Beatty, and she says, gratitude turns what we have into enough. How does that make you feel?
Do you know, I want to bring in, I wish my 15-year-old daughter were here. So she got up in front of a group of people a couple of weeks ago. And I don't know what it's like to be a 15-year-old girl, but I've raised one. And
you have some ideas.
It's a roller coaster some days. But as she got up there in front of this group of people, she sat there and talked about how she found herself thinking about herself and worrying about things for herself and all these things about herself. And then one day she started to think about and had read some similar type quotes and started to think about, wait, what about everybody else? What about what they're going through? Like, how do I look at that? And then how do I be grateful for the things that I have? And it was interesting. I've seen kind of a change in her over the last little while as she thinks about like, oh man, I got some cool stuff. Like I'm super blessed. Like I got a cool lacrosse team. Like I've got all these great things in my life. And it's crazy how like that kind of flip of the switch from like, what do I need? What do I deserve? Like who should be giving me this thing to, holy cow, look at these cool things that I have, has changed that thing. 15, love her. Hello, if you watch this, but might flip in a week or two, but I think the reality is that is a reality. Like when we look at stuff and we're like, man, I'm grateful to have that thing. It changes our perspective a little bit.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. All right. Same question.
Right, so I think about humans are wired for connection. And when we're giving, it creates this ultimate connection. Like my favorite book, The Go-Giver.
Great book if you haven't read it.
Please read it if you haven't, especially if you're in HR. It's the best. It really is. It's about giving back to the people. You take the me out of it and you make it about we. it's the reason why I do what I do. It's the reason why I'm passionate about HR. It's giving back to people, unlocking opportunities in themselves that they don't even know. Maybe they I see this major capability in them and they don't recognize it, or they're afraid to go and own it. And you unlock that for them, and watching them grow and develop and flourish in those types of things is so gratifying for me. It's enough. Enough said.
That's awesome. Well, I want to defer to the great philosopher Winnie the Pooh. And he said, sometimes the smallest things.
Whoa. That's not how he said it.
We get like a Winnie the Pooh vibe going.
If you're asking us all these hard questions, you at least got to come with some Winnie the Pooh.
Let me try this. Sometimes the smallest things take up the most room in your heart.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not very good, but I'm going to try again later. So I appreciate that though, right? Sometimes the smallest things take up the most room in your heart. And I think that's like a life lesson, right? That's man, you know what I miss is the little things. I remember listening to a mom, her boys had gone off to college and were having babies of their own. And I grew up in Huntington Beach, and she used to be so annoyed with the wetsuits hanging over every door and the dripping everywhere and slipping. And she used to be so mad at her boys. And now she would kill to have that back. She misses it, right? It's the little things that she missed, right? She had great memories with her boys, but she actually misses the wetsuits, splattered all over the kitchen floor. So what would you recommend and share with our audience? What are the small things? What's been the small things that have hit you that you're like, gosh, that really meant a lot to me, right? And I know for me, a note does a lot, surprise lunches. I love surprises, which is why I gave you one, right? That. Thank you. I love to receive surprises, so I love to give them. It's such a fun thing. Those are small things, right? But what are the smallest things that have affected you?
So we were talking about this also before today. My love language is words of affirmation. So when people tell me, thank you, or you did this for me and it mattered in this way, those are the types of things I hold on forever. I can't think of anything specifically other than I was having a conversation with our employee here, my employee that works for me. And she was just telling me about how much impact I've had on her and her career in the short time she's been in here, just by trusting her, believing in her, and giving her ownership and autonomy to go figure things out. That's been really meaningful for her, and that stuck with me because I'm glad I'm having an impact on her and her future career. So.
Man, my mind's going everywhere. We talk about the small things and things of the past. So did you ever read the book Indian in the Cupboard?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Wow, you're going way back. That's fourth grade. Yeah.
Dude, I'm reading that book right now.
Are you really? Is it amazing?
It's awesome.
Oh, that's awesome. Wow.
So, it's funny how as a kid, you have this think about the imagination that as I'm sitting here reading the book and I'm like, dude, takes a cupboard, skeleton key, Indian, right? Yeah. Alive. And as I think about, as a kid, the imagination and the things that we had as kids, sometimes I think about that as an adult and I'm like, where the heck did that go?
I am not fun anymore, but my taxes are done.
Right? We all of a sudden we're we have to be this adult and we have to do these adult things. And when I look about what it was like being a kid, sometimes those are the small things. And those are the things I come back to every once in a while. And I'm like, you know what? Let's have some fun. Things don't always go perfectly well. And when you talk about the small things, it's funny how small things can take a part of your heart, whether they're good, bad, or ugly, right? If it's something really bad went wrong, that's filling your heart. But if something really great is in there, that's filling your heart, right? And so I think taking a look at what we have in life and trying to figure out, what do we really care about? What makes the biggest difference? Maybe it's the Indian from India in the Cupboard. Right now, I'm at the point, if you ever read it, the Cowboys introduced now, they're having little battles, it's getting pretty Western right now.
It's like the prequel to Night at the Museum.
Right, yeah. Actually kind of is, right? But how are we continuing that imagination, that great imagination we had at the time when we were kids? Because I feel like sometimes those little small things we thought about that drove the joy that we had in our life, there's no reason for that to change. Maybe it's different, it's not India in the Cupboard necessarily at work every day, but there are simple, small things that happen every single day that are something to celebrate about. There's something to have some fun with, right? And so I think it's important to think about those small things because the big things sometimes are too big.
Awesome.
I just want to add to that really quick.
Please, yeah.
It's the imagination of a child is because they don't have the limited beliefs that we have conditioned into us as we get older, right?
Ew, I feel like you're talking about me.
I'm talking about everybody. We all have these limited beliefs now, and we don't challenge them. We got to challenge them, and that is what's going to bring a lot of the joy and the imagination, all the fun things that we had as kids.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome. Well, in closing, coming full circle back to National Employee Appreciation Day, which is March 7th. That's our Super Bowl. I love it. Richard Branson is quoted saying, "Take care of your employees, and they will take care of your business." It's as simple as that. Yes. So in parting, what would you leave with the world? Guys, like we're a few weeks away from the biggest appreciation day at work that can be. What is your message to people? Do this. Let's start with you.
Say thank you and mean it. Like find the thing that they've done and give them a sincere heartfelt thank you, one-on-one conversation. I don't care what it is, but I think that is just the key to unlocking people, and exactly that they will do and move mountains for you and your company if you'll do those things.
That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, hard to jump on top of that. I mean, that's the reality, you know. I mean, it's but I think that makes the biggest difference, you know. And we're in an industry obviously where we provide branded goods, and it's a way to thank people. But even in that aspect, like sometimes it's that does it, right? That will do it. But on top of that, like having those conversations and really as you get to know people, like understand what they love, what they like, and just connect with them. And I think the more that you connect with people, especially your team members that you work with every day, the more I look at March 7th as the Super Bowl, you know, Employee Appreciation Day. I don't know how I feel about that day, to be honest with you, because I look at it and I'm like, how do we make that, you know, 250 business days a year or whatever we have, you know, because at the end of the day, like every single team member on that team is doing great things every single day. And I think we need to find ways as managers and owners and even team members to look to each other and really thank each other for what we're doing every single day and on March 7th.
Awesome. So watch this. Thank you for being on the podcast. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you guys. It's been fun. So that's a wrap for us. Really appreciate you joining us. We've got another fun episode coming up in a couple of weeks, but thank you for joining us and stay tuned. Have a good day.